We are live here at Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vicinda. I'm Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP. We're a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. Our hope and desire is to help amazing designers find great players who love their game and help amazing players find great designers whose games they can love. We do that in a lot of different ways. Sometimes we do actual plays. We do a lot of short reviews over on our YouTube channel, which you can find by clicking down below if you're watching us on Twitch. But one of my favorite ways to do it is just to sit down with people in the RPG community, talk about the work that they do, who they are, and what they have going on. Today, I am joined by two such guests. We have Walton Wood and John Bannister with us. Walton, John, thanks so much for joining us. We're glad to have you here with us today. For anybody out there who doesn't know who you are, I think me memorizing a bunch of facts about you that I may get wrong is silly. Why don't you tell people who y'all are? So, Walton, why don't you go first?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Tony. My name is Walton Wood. I have a PhD in literature, and last year at the height of the pandemic, I made the awesome decision to apply everything I learned from that to tabletop games. So I run the Liber Ludorum blog and also Ex Libris Mercboria, which is what we're here to talk about today.
Absolutely. And John, tell people who you are.
Oh, as if I need much of an introduction. No, I've barely been in the scene for all that long. I'm a software developer. I currently at a place called bookshop.org, big fan of supporting independent bookshops. And yeah, I've learned some web development skills through being at a number of like ethically and socially minded companies over my time. And yeah, I discovered this whole thing about a year ago, and oh my god, it's an amazing place to be. So I'm trying to throw my skills out to help as many people as I can with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. And it's such a growing need in the community. We talk about it a lot. We're going to dive into it more. But as we're talking about websites, let's talk about, we're going to talk a lot about its leaders, but let's talk about my favorite website that I've discovered today. And that's emailaddress.horse. If y'all aren't familiar with emailaddress.horse, it's just John's website.
Yeah.
I thought, when I was looking at the preview graphics, I thought Johnny must have made a mistake. Why is there emailaddress.horse on this slide? Tell us about emailaddress.horse.
So I don't. This has escalated into far more official things than I was imagining. But emailaddress.horse is a website that I registered mostly because I was having a very tiresome time with recruiters in the tech industry. I was getting very bored of them chasing me up to join banks and other places I didn't really want to be. So I thought I'm going to give myself some fun, and I will make sure that if I ever have to relay my contact details, or more especially if they have to pass them on to any company, they have to say, yeah, it's John at emailaddress.horse. No, that is his email address, John at email. It's yeah. So emailaddress.horse for me has just been like the best way to explain I'm not taking the internet very seriously at all. So
well, I did pop it up on the screen next to us so everybody can see it, can just see the height of web design, all the things that they can come to expect. A bunch of people are trying to type links into the chat. It won't work because we have them blocked so that when spammers hop into our channel, they can't post their dumb links. As somebody who owns more URLs than anyone should, and who is not super high up on that list, I'm a big fan of the .horse domain. I love emailaddress.horse. I'm waiting for .box to drop. I've got a lot of plans for .box, but I was just really excited to see it.
Yeah. I previously had I had an improv team. It was me and another person, and we wanted to make it as hard as possible to promote ourselves at the end of a gig. So we registered the domain .im/prov as letters written out DOTIMSLASH .im/prov. So it was .im/prov.im/prov. And yeah, we never did a gig, and I'm very glad we didn't have to try and explain that.
That's awesome. Speaking of websites, Walton, we're gonna, like I said, dive deep in on the Ex Libris project, but tell us about Liber Ludorum also too, the project, the site that you've been developing for a while now.
Yeah, it's really just a blog. I do posts. I try to do every week, but it doesn't always work out that way, especially when it's game jam time. But it started with Mercboria. I got it about this time, the physical book this time last year, and I had never seen a book quite like this before. And I decided I have to tell the world about this. So I wrote some really crappy posts to go along with my review as my launch content. And I've done a couple of web ventures before that weren't successful. So when I got like 400 hits on my review on the first day, it was like, all right, this has some legs. Maybe I can keep doing this and go somewhere with it. So yeah, I love indie games. It's a really rich scene. There's a lot of creative people doing really, really unusual, neat stuff with games. So I try to look at as much of that as I can, and just I don't know, when I see a game that has something unique about it, or just something really outlandish, or just really smart approach to a tabletop game, I try to write 1,500 words about it and let everyone else know about it.
That's awesome. As somebody who also tries to scan through all the indie RPG content that exists and then produce content around it, I've got a lot of deep appreciation there. My thought was like, oh well, I don't like to write, so instead, what I'll do is play a game for 4 hours and produce that content, then write a script and then read that script and then record that and then edit that in order to avoid writing, which I didn't do at all.
I love it. You streamlined the process so much, Tony. It's just
but no, I have been a big fan since I first picked up on Liber Ludorum, and have been really excited about the Ex Libris project also too. We have talked a lot on the channel in the past about digital tools, how we embrace modern things. We were also talking right before we went live about how, as much as we love all those things, we also all just want to sit down with a dead tree in front of us and play a game using physical objects a lot of the time. And so looking at how those two things work together, how they blend, is always exciting. Out there watching right now, if you have any questions as we go through, please let us know. But before we go any further, Walton, go ahead and give me the elevator pitch, or both of you, go ahead and give me the elevator pitch for Ex Libris and what it is.
John, do you want to go first, or should I?
No.
So, like I said, last year I decided I'm going to take everything I learned from my English degree and start applying it to tabletop RPGs. And one of those is bibliography, keeping track of useful books and just pieces of writing. So that's like, at its core, that's where Ex Libris started. It was just a roster of the third-party content that was being produced for Merkboria. And it very, very quickly outgrew the static pages on WordPress, which is what I'm using for the blog. And so 4 or 5 months ago, John and I and some other folks, Heck and Viv and Matt McGlincy and Ben Sherwood and Derek Gustafson, we just started putting our heads together and figuring out what is a better way to present this to the people that want easy access to this content. And that's really what it is now. It's a database of all things Merkboria. We've got like actual game content. We've got T-shirts listed. We've got mugs. We've got music and soundtracks. If it's got the third-party license on it, I try to find a place to put it in there. So it's literally all licensed content for the game.
That's awesome. And right now y'all are running a Kickstarter, which I just popped up next to us, also having taken a look at the beautiful new site. Tell us a little bit about the Ex Libris Merkboard Kickstarter.
So really that's, we're raising funds to maintain Ex Libris as it is right now, pay for hosting and stuff like that, but also our biggest ambition is to expand it and open it up to people who want to do the same thing for other games. Right now we have Mana Rent Matt on board. He's going to start curating for Mouse Ritter. He's got all the content. He's got it all categorized and cataloged. Pretty much all we need to do is get him set up and just turn him loose to do his thing. So that's really our overarching goal, is to bring on new directories and kind of try to make this a hub for indie content, third-party content, and whatever else we can put in here to help it get exposure and help introduce people to neat stuff.
Awesome. And right now y'all are about a little under halfway up to that goal of, hey, let's put a bunch of other systems on here and just go full force at it. I have been super excited to watch the project grow over the course of it. I also love that it is it feels a lot like the original intent of Kickstarter, which I'm not somebody who's ever going to critique how people use Kickstarter as long as it's ethical. But I do love the idea of like, here's something we're working on that we love. Having your money lets us devote more time to this and make it a better thing. And we're already doing it anyway, so please just help us do it the way that, like, create this bigger vision for it and something that can help everybody. So it's not like, hey, it's just I'm using this as pre-orders or marketing for my RPG that's coming out or whatever, which is totally great, and I want people to do on on crowdfunding platforms. But it really is kind of embracing that original ideal, and so I've been loving watching it, and so we'll come back and talk about the project a little bit more in just 1 second. We do have a lot of channel questions in the chat. I'm gonna at various levels of important. Gustav wants me to make sure I ask you about your T-shirt, which we talked about earlier, and is something from your server. And then Johan wants to know if you have any Distorted Heretic cover printouts laying around, and if you could say anything about them. And let's see. Yeah, everybody wants extended critique of the Distorted Heretic cover printouts you have laying around. Which, for people who don't know what that is, why don't you go ahead and tell people what the inside joke on that?
Oh, I'll get Derek's question first. The T-shirt is from the Rugos Cone line of fine Merkboria fashion wear. But to the other question. For the last 3 months and counting, every day I've been printing out a copy of the Merkboria Heretic cover, and then rescanning it and then reprinting it out and just seeing how long it takes to degrade. I've been doing like 4 lines of that in various print qualities, and this is it right now.
Oh my goodness. Can we see the most recent one?
Yeah, so this is... This I've been, since day 3, I've been double printing it every 3 days, so you can see it's very, very kind of just distorted. I don't know how well my camera can handle the resolution, but you can see it's really kind of reticulated at this point. There's some gaps up here in what used to be the title. But let's see. This is the original printout, so you can see how far it's come.
So that's going to be bound and released on Kickstarter at the start of 2022 as a nice coffee table art book.
Oh, yeah.
And how much do people have to pledge to the Kickstarter to get the original copy? That's the real question.
I don't know. We haven't set a price point on that. I think this is, I don't know, this is worth at least 5 cents and a stick of gum, I think.
Let's talk a little bit just about RPGs, and then we'll dive into the project a little bit more intensely. We had some good questions come in about some integrations and some other stuff like that. A lot of pop-up book energy. I'm sure we'll get back to all of that.
Of course we did.
Let's start with the question that we usually get to a little bit earlier, and that's John. How did you get started playing RPGs?
So I think it would have been about 14, 15 at school. Just some friends said, hey, I've got the rule books for D&D 3.5, and we gave it a shot. But it was one of those things that I fell in love with immediately and then got very few opportunities to play. So I got the 4th edition rules, and I'm not sure when I was probably about 17, and I think I carried them everywhere with me until I was about 22 and played it for the first time then, or just around the time D&D Next was coming out. So I really didn't capitalize on those books all that much before getting into the play test. But I'm one of those kind of eternal DMs that is always forming a group and introducing people to the hobby, but really rarely getting an opportunity to join a game myself. I had a nice party going last year, playing a lot of the Essentials Kit adventure of D&D 5, and that was a really satisfying thing to have going through the beginning of the pandemic. But it kind of got, as soon as I started to find a bit more about the OSR and sort of more indie tabletop RPG scene, it was really hard to keep taking my attention back to something that felt too heavy for me. I've got no problem. I'm really glad that group is carrying on with 5e and having a great time with it. But as soon as I found things that worked better for me, it saved a lot of the tension that I was feeling in working out how I prepare and how I make this work for both my players and myself as the DM, and it was too easy for me to just put my own feelings aside in that toss up. But now that now finding like Borg and getting into Mouse Ritter and games like this, setting up a bit of a book club, I definitely spend a bit more time talking about games rather than playing them, and lately developing software for games rather than playing them. But it's just such a fascinating space. I'm really into theatre and improv comedy as well, so I find there's such an interesting combination of the technical aspects, the performative things, how you tell narrative through all of this stuff, and the way it all weaves together. And frankly, everything that Walton writes about these games just really shows you quite how much there is to dive into to understand all of this. So it's just as much as when you play an RPG like this, you've got stimulation coming from everywhere. I find reading them provides just as much. So it's even just like having a stack of them next to me at the moment that I need to read. I still, like, every single one has got so many ideas, and I've got so much respect for, like, it's the fact that it's just people on Twitter who are talking about these things, and when you actually pick one up and read it, you see they've got amazing ideas, every single one of them. So yeah, that's my
awesome
story with it.
What originally put Morkborg on your radar?
I was trying to remember that recently, and I'm not sure, but I know what it was that made me actually go, okay, I should probably take a look at this. And it's when it cut through to The Guardian, which is a national newspaper in the UK. They did just this one article about the game, and nothing ever gets kind of that much direct attention from them. And I read it, and it just sounded amazing. The art style of it were being front and center, and the fact that it was so pared back in terms of the rules when it explained, when they were going through kind of how the mechanics of it worked to some extent. But there was one line in a photo of it that stuck with me, was the thing that made me feel like this game is right for me and for everyone, which was essentially the fourth or fifth step of creating a character is give your character a name if you want. It will not keep them alive, basically. And at that, I just felt like there's so much disdain for these characters. They're so disposable. This is so different to everyone who is over-engineering and optimizing characters that I really want to get into that world and know more about what this game is. I picked up the physical rules, and wow.
The red shirty self-awareness of that line is always one of my favorite things. Like, my character doesn't have a name. Like, how are they going to survive? No, that's awesome and amazing. Love hearing it. We'll be able to come back to it a little bit more also too. Walton, how about you? How did you get started playing RPGs?
Almost the exact same way. My freshman year of high school, a longtime friend basically said, "Hey, let's play D&D," and I'd heard of it. I didn't really know anything about it. It was the tail end of second edition, which I still don't really know a whole lot about, despite having started there. But we played that throughout high school. We had a really long-running campaign that we finished about 10 years later. Took a break for the most part from RPGs during college, and then reconnected with different old friend. We started playing D&D 3.5 again, and eventually found Pathfinder. That was my go-to for a number of years. And then it was June of last year. I decided to give Forbidden Lands a shot, and I liked that because it was a lighter rule set than Pathfinder or D&D. And when I was buying Forbidden Lands, it showed me the advertisement for there it is. Pretty. Free Lagan showed me the ad for Merkborg, and I thought, okay, that looks cool. And about a month later, it stuck in my head, and I just had to go back, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this. And I haven't looked back since. Like I rarely go back to Pathfinder or D&D. I just want to see what other neat, weird stuff is out there like that people are doing.
Yeah, I love it. It is one of the reasons like our channel exists, is because there are all these small little wonderful beautiful nuggets of a game, and sometimes it's just somebody has just put a bunch of into it and put it up on itch, and it's their their 3-page personal fantasy heartbreaker rather than a 300-page personal fantasy heartbreaker. And other times they're in these beautifully bound books, and it's just been really great to see that. And it's been amazing, specifically Merkborg and a number of other games over the course of the last couple of years have not only done a great job of coming along, challenging the scene, looking at and deconstructing a lot of the tropes and stuff and representing them in this really beautiful packaging in really unique ways, but there's also these communities of play that have kind of popped up around them. And we always jokingly talk about, as Ichi referenced, like collecting RPGs is one hobby, designing RPGs is another hobby, playing RPGs is another hobby. Rugos in the chat was like, like making characters is a different hobby sometimes than sitting down to play an RPG. And so like there's all these little things that we do because we find them fun in the hobby, but they don't all necessarily perfectly overlap. But a lot of people don't consider what play is going to be like when they're designing RPGs. It feels like, hey, this is a really interesting academic exercise, or here are some interesting thoughts you have that you put in a book. That's not to knock anyone. There's a very different reality when we start to think about the experience of play at a table, or we start to think about the community of people who start to gather around and create content for that. And I think Merkborg has done a phenomenal job of fostering that. And Mothership is the other community I would really point out, has done a really phenomenal job of building up the group of designers and players and people who love their game around them. And I love seeing that. And I feel like Ex Libris is a beautiful extension of that. Where did the idea for the Ex Libris site come into being at? Like, what was the moment where you were like, hey, this should be a thing?
Are you talking about like the site as it is now, or do you mean in the depths of history, its origins?
In the depths of history, and then we'll hit the rebirth in a second.
It's so going back to last September when the third-party license officially released. At the time, I was working on an article for the first issue of Weird Science Session 0, and John Power said, "Hey, I don't know if you've seen Dissident Whispers, but it's got some really cool stuff in it." And I took a look, and yeah, there's some really cool stuff in Dissident Whispers. And I started looking at some of the other third-party stuff, and I felt like it should all be in one place for easy access. And that was, at the time when there were like a dozen titles that had been released, and now we're well over 600, probably on our way to 700. So that was really the idea, was put it all in one spot so everyone can see it all in one spot instead of having to dig through Drive-Thru RPG or Itch or Facebook or Discord or wherever it is that people end up posting their content.
What are you saying? That it's not always easy to troll across the internet looking for random bits of content, and that not every RPG distributing platform has intuitive search functions that allow you to quickly discover that content?
Well, believe it or not, no, like I know how Itch works for the most part, and I know, like, I can go to Itch right now and search for something that I know is there, but it's not going to pop up when I put in the title.
Right.
So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of keep it visible and accessible for whoever wanted to use it.
I love it. And then let's talk a little bit about the new version, because the site was up. And this is what I love. Like, y'all launched the new version of the site with the Kickstarter, essentially, right? It wasn't like, hey, we're going to hold out. If we make this, we're going to do it. There was a commitment of like, no, we're doing this because it's going to be a better site. We're also launching this Kickstarter. Please support us, which I think is such a hopeful reality that it's been great to see people respond to. So tell us about the rebirth of this site. John, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I mean, initially, the entire pitch was just, well, let's try and make your life a bit easier. Whenever I'm on a site that I'm pretty interested in, I can't help but view the source and check, okay, how's this put together? What ideas are being used here? And it became quite clear that, oh, okay, Walt is doing this by hand. And I've got a huge amount of respect for the man for doing that, but also surely we can get a better way. If we can find something that makes it a bit more sustainable. It was also around about the time where like game jams were really kicking off in the scene, and it seemed like he is going to exhaust himself. So one of the main things, first of all, when Walt asked if anyone else was available to maybe give him a hand with it, was what makes it easier? What would make it easier for you? So it began a lot more as just try and save the archivist some time, and hopefully let the good work that he does continue. But as I've never considered myself all that much of a designer, but as we started to put the right yellow on the page and find a bit of a black letter font and put a few elements together, it started to feel, oh, there's actually some stuff going on in here that feels like this could really not just make it an easier site to enter content into, but a far more satisfying site to actually browse and find stuff in. We dived into the right ways to try and tag and categorize content. So it's not just about what's possible in static pages in WordPress. Now it's about how will people really think about how this content is connected, and how will they want to be able to slice it up and find the right parts of it. So at that stage, it's where it really shifted from this is what's difficult about what we've got now, and became a lot more about what do we really need it to be. When I build software, I focus a lot more on making sure we have flexibility, because there's always so many interesting ideas that emerge from the tools that people have when they start to use them, that I'd rather make sure that when Walt goes, okay, can we have categories for these things? I'll go, okay, you can have categories for anything. And I look forward to being surprised by what you come up with, because now, even today, we found, oh, there's a little way we use putting links on things that mean we can directly deep link into a character generator called Scumatorium, and like suddenly all of these things just pop up in minutes from them having been discussed on Discord. So the site was very much just, at that point, it became, this is a common good now. This is something that once we put it out there with the right feel, and we can represent all the content that is available, we need to make sure that we're doing this in a responsible way that really attributes all of the creative work to the people who deserve the credit for it. But otherwise, it's about making the site something that works well on as many devices and as accessible as possible. And it once it hit what this meant for the community, not just for Walt's well-being, it was like, right, this is a real and serious thing that we need to do now, and it was going to get built regardless of whatever went on. The Kickstarter is now help us have more than just like evenings and weekends to burn, and take us further on it.
That's awesome. You mentioned it was already a question. There are a lot of people who want to know more about Scumatorium and Scumatorium integration. So do you have any more insight to that? Also, chat, I saw that Ben wants me to search something. Chat, you tell me what you think I should search on the site, and I'll search something. But go ahead and tell me a little bit more about Scumatorium.
Could you explain Scumatorium briefly, Walt?
Yeah, so Scumatorium is a third-party application built by Carl Druid, who did Dungeon Gin and Scumbirther, which are the official like dungeon generator and character creator for Mercloria. And this is his entirely third-party character generator. I put that in scare quotes because he's been doing bootleg versions of the core character classes from the core rulebook with different pictures and different names. But they are licensed under the third-party license, so they are third-party content. And he and Derek and Matt are working on putting as many third-party characters into it as they possibly can. So if you just want to roll up a random character out of everything that's available in the future, you'll be able to go to Scumatorium and click a button, and every character class that is in the game will be in there, and you might get any one of them.
And it's not just in the game, it's like in the community as well. So on the internal dev Discord channel that we've got going, it kind of some ideas bounced around of us going, well, okay, we've got Scumatorium and we've got classes on Xlibris that exist in Scumatorium. How can we join those together? So it just kind of very quickly, Carl had put together a quick change to the code that meant that we could put links directly to the classes to be generating those immediately. And then because of the flexibility that it's been built with, it meant that it was easy to just drop those links directly into the page, and one click, you're ready to just spin up a character of whatever class you've browsed into at the time. And yeah, that's just how this community works. You just go for it.
And I'd like to add that happened in the space of about 20 minutes this afternoon.
Yeah, while I was eating a burger.
It is one of the things I love about, like you mentioned Dissident Whispers earlier, which we're big fans of and have done some content in collaboration with some of the designers behind that to celebrate the 1 year anniversary a little while ago. Johanna was on for part of that conversation. It's something we're big fans of, and that like a lot of things in the RPG community, it's like, hey, this would be a fun idea, and then the next day you wake up and like that idea is part of the way done and way further along than you would have thought, and then 2 weeks later you're like, well, actually I think we've done this thing that we set out to do plus 5 or 6 more things on top of that. It is I think oftentimes the epitome of jumping off the cliff and then building the plane underneath you as you're plummeting is a lot of the feel. But I absolutely love it. Nobody gave me anything specific to search, so we're just going to see what comes up on Xlibris when I type in one of the most important keywords that we have here, and that's beard. We'll see what comes up. There's a beard. Nothing. There's 0 tags. It's a complete
beards.
Complete hole.
Ooh.
Apparently, someone needs to make beard content for.
Well, there we go.
It'll be done by the time we finish this interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have. I'm doing some work for Vastgrim, which is the sci-fi adaptation of Morkborg as a new setting, and I have a class called the Mange in there that I'm working on for that, so maybe we'll do one. But yeah, anybody else who wants to, I would love for there to be more than just one beard thing. All right, here. What are some other things? We're searching naked. No, we're gonna search Rugos, if I'm pronouncing that right. 1 entry. What a great one to have pop up.
Does a tag appear in that?
Does a tag appear? Where would I look for
should
tags?
Be at the top. So it should be. Does it say?
It says
0
1
tags.
tag.
Or, okay, and if you click on that, then you should have a list of. That will be Rugos's creator tag. We want to turn those, when the tags are for creators, we want to make them a bit of a richer profile. But at the moment, you can click on that, and you should see everything that's listed with Rugos as the creator.
There we go. There's a lot more stuff. We found more stuff. Everybody was worried for a second.
Yeah, no,
where did
let's
it all
not
go?
discredit by suggesting Rugos has not created a lot of content.
And you can, like, I love this. Like, you can, and this is, I think, one of the things I'm clicking down here on. You know, if I try to pronounce the umlauts on folklore, I'll be messed up. All the contributors are tagged. Like, this is, I think, something that comes up a lot in the RPG scene is how we do credit, how we give credit. And so it's not just a primary or a couple ones, but it's easy, it looks like, to go in and tag based on who all contributed to a project. You know, and do that a little bit more dynamically, which is again great for not only attribution, for connection, but also for the actually knowing and knowing who in the community worked on this and how you're connecting with them. So absolutely beautiful.
I will say, just on that note, just because of the limitations on WordPress at the beginning, like some people like editors, proofreaders, stuff like that aren't listed for a lot of the entries. But part of the work I want to do in the next few weeks is go back and like get everyone credited now that I'm not limited by the space that WordPress gives me for a picture and a little bit of text.
And additionally, those creator tags is kind of, I mean, we're a little bit in two minds about how to deal with them, because they're almost like the perfect profile for a person's presence as a creator in this particular community. So at the moment, the descriptions, bios, links, and everything like that are all still managed by Walton and other people who have access to act as administrators on the site. But there's a little part of me that feels like that should be opened up so that people can take control and make sure that they can contribute their, like, whatever information, and make sure that the creators can be attributed correctly, and also you can find the right ways to engage with them further and everything beyond that. So it's always like this kind of stuff that we want to make sure that we are getting right for this platform. That, yeah, it's about the people who've made it.
Yeah, I'd love to be
here without that.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to like put, social media handles, links, profiles, websites, whatever they want to have, links to their art, stuff like that in the creator profiles. So that's definitely kind of a longer term goal, but letting them outfit their tag how they want, I'm 100% behind that.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's one of those beautiful things about being able to say, like, we can give as we have the tools, we can give over more and more and more ownership to the wider community, but we have to have the tools to make that happen. Otherwise, you're not giving a gift, you're giving a burden, right? Like, if you can figure this out, if you can master the barrier to entry, if you can do all these other things, then you can get your stuff on here, as opposed to figuring out the best way to do that in a cohesive fashion. Vinoda says, guess we need to follow up the tooth supplement in Burke Morgue with beards to complete the barbershop. I'm 100% down to collaborate on that and support it as much as possible. Please do. They also say that they'd love to see a creator graph, network graph, once all this data is entered, which would be absolutely amazing to see. And then I think we've had a couple of different questions about that I think kind of tail into each other, which is, having flipped through Dissident Whispers, as you said, is kind of the impetus of there's Mothership content in there, there's Old School Essentials content in there, there's a lot of other systems that are featured heavily in there. Why Merkborg as the system that you kind of gravitated to initially for Ex Libris?
As far as like the Ex Libris RPG platform, like that's what we had aggregated, that that made an easy flagship for bringing on, like, right at the beginning. I started, pulling all the content just because I love this freaking game. I love everything about it. I love playing it. I love the content. I love the people who make the content, the aesthetics, the writing, the ideas that go into it. It's just like, it's all pure gold. Like, I didn't want to see any of it lost or get slipped through the cracks of the internet and disappear.
I love that. Craig, this leads into Craig's question over on Facebook. Does it have to be Merkborg Cult to show up on Ex Libris, which is currently the case, right? Or not Merkborg Cult, but it has to be a Merkborg product, but not a cult project, correct?
Yeah, we've got cult content on there as well. And when Putrescence Regnant comes out, that's an official release that'll be on there too. My only requirement for getting something in the database is that it's compliant with the third-party license.
Okay, cool. And then the question is, what does it look like to start to integrate? Like, what, I mean, like, this is kind of the future-looking thing, and the hope is, like we said, there's that $10,000 goal to start opening this up. But also, I know the ongoing march of development tends to happen when we're passionate about something, no matter what. So, what does this look like as you start to open it up to other systems?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because we haven't fully figured that out. What is absolutely certain is that just as much as Ex Libris as it stands at the moment is entirely focused and themed around Morkborg, it's not going to stay that way once it becomes a Mouse Ritter one. When Manorant Matt is unleashed on the site, I want to make sure that he has a place that feels just as much Mouse Ritter as what we have at the moment feels Morkborg. So I envision it as being probably each game will get broken down into a subdomain. So you'd have morkborg.exlibris.com as where you find all your Morkborg content, and then mouseritter.exlibris.com, and so on as we add other games. Each one gets its own distinct flavor and theme, and they can tag and categorize to their heart's content in whatever way is appropriate for their community. And also, like, based on the amount of energy that the curators can put into it, I wouldn't judge anyone for keeping a list that is just, these are the entries. Feel free to search, but I cannot put too much energy into it. I'd understand that. But equally, if they want to go super in depth and say about like boundary level criteria and stuff like that, then they'd be very welcome to. I think the only thing that hasn't really shown up by there being a single game on the platform at the moment is the intention to make sure that creators continue to have a profile that crosses across all of the games. So if you've created something for Morkborg and then you've created something for Mouse Ritter and Mothership, I want to make sure that all of that is tied together, because if I enjoyed playing your adventure in one game, I'm going to be really curious about trying that in another as well. And for me, that's where it becomes really a really important part for the community, because yeah, I think one of the issues I have with something like Itch or promoting on Twitter and everything is that it so much depends on building up that profile or people discovering your tweet at that particular time. Whereas it's such an esoteric community that I might find there's one person who has 10 followers and one idea that I absolutely love, but they've done the perfect execution of that idea in 3 different games, and I want to dive into all of that. But if I'm really struggling to surface that first one to begin with, and it's really hard for me to try and track down everything else that's gone together, it denies me the opportunity to form a real close relationship with a creator who's doing something that feels uniquely me. And it's a place where people have gone off and made their own versions of whatever game they really love, but want to tweak it so the combat is a bit more like this other game they really admire. So why would we deny anyone the opportunity to follow the creators on that journey as they go through all the different games that they're passionate about as well?
I love that. And like I said, people have commented about it a lot, but the amount of long-term metadata, like creator connections, other things that you can pull out of that, the statistics and other, is really kind of a beautiful thing to see that most other sites are not interested in showing the work on, or even really diving into outside of whatever weird algorithms they've set up for their their own purposes. And it's one of the things I love about coming to the community, is saying like, we've done this, we want to share this. This isn't about saying like, how do we monetize this on the site? It's about saying like, we want to do this and do this well for the community. Please help us do that. So I just want to encourage you. People are watching right now, haven't supported yet. Go support the project. If you have supported already and you want to bump it up, go do that also. That's great. Also, no, it doesn't hurt. Even just sharing, like I always tell people, like even just backing it $1 is a tremendous help. If you can't do $1, go share on social media all over the place about this great project that you heard about today. So says, can we talk about paladins, which I don't know what that means. I don't know if we want to. So
anybody who wants to
goddamn
anybody
paladins.
Anybody who wants to talk about paladins can come over to my Discord server after the show. I think we'll leave that one alone.
We'll have a post-show paladins conversation.
That sounded like a threat, Walt.
Just a reminder, if you have any questions you want to ask live, please do. Y'all have mentioned it a couple times, but John, could you tell us a little bit about what the site is developed on and some of what into the specifics of developing the site?
Yeah, so this site is built with my own personal favorite web framework, Ruby on Rails. I really like it because it does so much for you early on in the process. I think it's a really powerful tool for anyone who wants to build, say, a prototype of something or an MVP, because you don't have to think about making everything the most effective and efficient thing immediately. It will put something together for you that works. It's got a built-in function that will just scaffold a website for you to create and update data. So with that, it meant that I could have something to show Walt and the rest of the team within a couple of weeks. I think we had most of the structure put together. And from there, it's really about diving in and finessing it. So Ruby on Rails was without that, this would probably still be in development. JavaScript is a thing that I've got an interesting relationship with. I'm not a huge fan of its use in general, because I find that you can lean on it too much, but there's definitely the right place for it. So the site, in fact, is probably not all that interesting. I've told a few people about it on Twitter, and I've had comments that, oh, I'm surprised to hear that people are still using that nowadays. These technologies aren't out of date, but they definitely aren't the shiny new thing. For me, they're the most effective tools that I have. I have ADHD, so I really struggle to go off on like all sorts of different directions in these things. That I've found tools that really help me focus on one thing at a time, make that work perfectly, and then I can step back and see the next problem. That database query is not quite efficient enough, and then step in and improve that a little bit. So as a personal project, a side project, something that I really want to use to enrich my spare time rather than just drain me, finding the right balance of tools for that was really effective. But they've all the tools involved in it. They've got thriving communities and lots of people who want to do lots of work to continue to support them. So it felt like this is a really long-term decision. This isn't a platform where the technology is going to be out of date immediately. But frankly, it's also put together in a way that means if we decided, we could just switch this all to static HTML pretty quickly, and it'll be available on the Wayback Machine on the Internet Archive and live in perpetuity. Even the code itself has gone onto GitHub's like weird thing where they just put it in the Arctic seed bank, so the code is just saved forever for some reason, which is nice.
Well, and like I'm gonna do it again. Like I did it earlier live, but like even just going to the site, you mentioned wanting it to feel like Merkborg when you arrive. There's a lot of strong connections to the way it feels like when you arrive at the actual Merkborg site by Stockholm Cartel. Absolutely gorgeous like setup. It's not like it's a totally elegant, simple design. And it's always interesting to me when people are like, oh, we wanted to do all these things, and why didn't you do it? It's like, I want it to do what it's supposed to do well. Like, and do that consistently without a lot of headache for anybody. Get some asked a little bit, and we've talked about this a little bit about plans to expand to other games. But what are, besides technology-wise, if somebody was like, I'm really interested in this, like if, oh man, I'm trying to think of a good example. We'll use Steve Jackson Games because I'm a GURP stan from way back. If Steve Jackson Games came to you tomorrow and were like, we really want Ex Libris GURPS, for 4th edition, and then eventually backtracking, what would, just in a hypothetical, need to happen for y'all in order to make that a reality from a staff and technology and financial standpoint? Whether you can be interested in GURPS or not, you should be, but like, what would that take?
Well, it's worth saying, first of all, I think the first actual RPG book I owned was Discworld GURPS, and I've just like ruined the spine of that book through flicking through it so many times. In terms of technology, it's largely there, aside from the extra code changes that we need to make to support any other game. The main challenge is getting the curator, getting the right person to be at the helm for that. And when we talk about what it takes to get Ex Libris ready for multiple games, we talk a lot about the technology, but I don't think we necessarily focus enough on what's made the Mortborg version of this a success so far. And that is, Walt has got a very clear vision for what this should be. The descriptions that he puts together are not reviews of the content. They are I'm sure he can put it together in his own words, but they are very much his attempt to try and give you the experience of the content itself without putting his own views on it. So at no point is it trying to make a subjective assessment on any of this. It's also putting the right kind of limitations on what content can go onto the platform. So there's a line drawn with third-party content, but Walt, being just like obsessed with making sure everything is cataloged properly, also keeps apocrypha notes on like things that don't quite make it into there, and then sets his hounds loose to try and make sure that that is added to the license. So in all of this, I think the main thing is making sure that you've got a person who takes that level of care and consideration to how they put together this collection of content. I think like throughout all of this, Ex Libris wouldn't be what it is without Walt, and that's not just because he had the idea and put the first version of the site together. It continues to be something that people are flocking to and draining my analytics account in page hits because of the creative decisions that he makes in how to fairly present content, so that a massively overblown Kickstarter that has had marketing funds gone into it gets just as much listing and recognition as a person who sketched something out on a napkin and it's got a fun idea and some people will enjoy to read it. Like they get built alongside each other, and I love that about it. And that's a decision that Walt made that I think is worth crediting, along with so many others that we can't list in one session.
Awesome. Love that. We've got a couple more questions. Before we get to that, a couple things for the channel. If you're just joining us for this, we cover indie content on a regular basis. We love Merkborg and a lot of the other systems we've talked about today. So if you want to hit follow on anything, we are also getting really close to 1,000 subscribers over on our YouTube channel, where we do short reviews of a lot of different games, if you want to check that out. Also, I'd invite you, if you want to help support our channel, you can become a content champion over on Ko-fi.com. As they roll out levels, we'll have some new benefits coming there. But if you just want to support what we do here, please go consider that. When you help support us, you help us keep being able to support great creators by providing free content around their projects. No one gets paid currently except for my editor for all of our videos and our graphic designers, who are both two phenomenal individuals who don't work in the RPG field outside of all the stuff that we do. They're just a professional video editor and a professional graphic designer who are on our team. So if you want to help support us and support other creators, please consider doing that. Would love to have you with us. We're actually going to be playing Mouse Ritter with Isaac next Wednesday night, because it's morning for him, but evening for us here in the U.S. at 8 p.m. I don't have the graphics ready for that. And then we're going to be playing Ray Guns and Robots by Planet X Games next Friday night at 8 p.m. using the first sci-fi hack of our house OSR system, Down We Go, which is called Away We Go, which is going to be the premiere of that sci-fi hack also too. So if you like what we're doing, feel free, hit follow, come back. Would love to have you join us for any of that. With that said, a couple more questions we had come in as we kind of finish out. Some J No Horror says, what does the logo say? They want to know what the logo says.
It says whatever you want it to say. No, but believe it or not, it does say Ex Libris Mercboria. Johan did that for us. And he asked me, how legible do you want it? And I told him to go nuts. And I think his response was, it's your funeral or something along those lines. But I absolutely love the way that looks. I couldn't be happier with it, even if everybody usually asks, what the hell does that say?
It's 100% the modern metal band look of, hey, this does say something. Am I, as the lead singer and person wearing the shirt, aware of exactly how it does that? No, it doesn't matter. It does say it somewhere in there. I absolutely love it. But then McGlintock wants to know a little bit more about the dungeon stretch goal that y'all have on the Kickstarter.
So yeah, that's when we were kind of kicking around ideas for how the new platform is going to work. I had this idea of like having just a content randomizer and putting together an adventure kind of that interfaced with that. So the idea is that you're down in the archives of Yusofa Miguel, the archpriestess of the two-headed basilisks, where all this profane knowledge is kept. And I don't want to give too much away because I kind of want it to be a surprise when it actually goes out to the backers. But there'll be a small cast of characters down there. One of them illustrated by Stein Hansen, actually created by Stein Hansen of Babylon's Hangover fame and Kennels of Carnage, which just wrapped up. But the characters will, or the adventure will work with the platform to send them off on random adventures and that are drawn from the entire breadth of what's available on the platform. So as more content gets added, the dungeon will functionally expand to encompass it all.
So good. We had Stein on a couple of weeks ago to play Kennels. It was an absolute blast to get to to go on that journey. No, I love it. I've been blown away continuing to watch how you do it and continuing to see how y'all are expanding and growing the site alongside the community. Again, if you have any more questions, we're about to finish up here. I want to just say, John, Walton, if y'all had, one big hope for what you really want to see in the future around Ex Libris, right? Something maybe you said it to people before, maybe you haven't, just something that you kind of would love to see come out of this. What would that be? Let's go with Walton first.
I'd like to see it help raise the profile of indie creators, indie games, and bring people just into new things they might never have known before. Whether it's just stumbling across the site and discovering a system that they never dreamed of, or if it's someone who, has played Mouse Ritter and they click over into Ex Libris Mothership and find something by a creator they really like and discover, a whole new system, whole new game, whole new genre. Just expanding possibilities for players, raising profiles for creators, and just really overall helping the scene thrive, I think would be my greatest ambition for it.
Love it. John, how about for you?
For me, I think it's about that person who puts their first piece of RPG content together and puts it out nervously somewhere and goes, "What do people think of this?" We've already heard feedback from people who, like, from where Walt has listed someone's content on the website and it's the first time it's gotten anywhere, but suddenly it feels like it's a real official thing that's seen by people and is permanently listed, and it makes such an impact for a creator to get that level of visibility, not just from like people in the Discord channel with them going like, "This is really cool, I'm really excited about it." That feels great, but then the sense of pride you can feel from having that listed kind of permanently in a searchable catalog database that isn't going to be like silently lost like it can on a site where you're competing against massive paid products. I think if it just means that like one person extra in each game that we can get listed on the platform makes something and goes, oh wow, okay, I'm going to do another thing, and spreads that word of like how satisfying it can be to creatively engage with the content of creating content for games, and goes that step beyond just enjoying it at the table, but sharing a bit of their own view of what makes this game so exciting and interesting, then like, yeah, for me, it's just that all those extra perspectives that come from encouraging the creators and validating every voice that puts content into these communities.
Awesome. With that said, everybody wants to know, will Walton learn Swedish at any pledge level? And then also, what level of support will it take to get Walt to shave his head or eyebrows? That's the other much asked question. So thank you for all those beautiful creator centers sentiments. Those creators want to know how they can get you to shave your head and learn Swedish.
Well, I'll take those in reversed order. I don't know, if we hit 20,000, I'll shave my head, and I might even post a video of me doing it. Second, jag talar svenska. Jag talar svenska inte bra, men jag talar svenska.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You said it well.
That's awesome. So again, I want to encourage people, if you have not yet, please go check out this phenomenal project that's live right now. After the project is over, if people want to financially support Ex Libris, is there going to be an option or a way to do that?
I think so. I think that we're probably going, at least my idea right now is setting up like an Ex Libris specific Patreon, just to kind of help fund the platform in general. And for like specific, like for Ex Libris Mercboria, I have a Patreon account for Liber Ludorum, if anyone wanted to support that, but I'm definitely going to encourage curators to set up Patreon accounts for the time being, so that the people who want to support their directories have an easy way of doing that.
Awesome. And then will there be t-shirts?
You mean beyond the ones that are available on the Kickstarter?
Yes. I've got 2 Will There Be t-shirts right in a row. If you want a t-shirt, go to the Kickstarter.
Oh, I think we lost John. That might be his internet connection cutting out.
Now we look weird. You look weird to everybody. Let me see if
I know we need him to balance this out. I hadn't really thought about t-shirts. There might be. It's conceivable, but honestly, for the moment, I hadn't really thought beyond the Kickstarter as far as apparel was concerned.
This is a great look right at the end of the that top half of your head is over on John's thing. Our shoulders. There we go. We're all back. People are in different places. People have different names. It's fine. It's a great moment. And then if people want to follow each of your work individually, John, tell people where they can find you on the internet.
Uh-oh, I think we lost him again.
Well, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Twitter under Liber Ludorum. That's LIBERLUDORUM. And people are also welcome to hit me up there. And if they want to join my Discord server, Lingua Ludorum, they're also welcome to do that as well.
Love it. And then if you want to follow John, again, you just got to go to emailaddress.horse for all the great content. Also, if you love Swedish designed rule light games and you like Walton, this is the official announcement that we have. Down We Go is a game by our good buddy Marcus Linderum that we've been developing over the course of the last couple of years to be our house OSR system. And Walt is going to be the editor on that project that is coming to GameFound at the end of this month. And Johan has a picture, a drawing, a picture, has some art in there also too. So it is a drawing, it is a picture, it is all those things. But feel free to check all that out. It's an absolute blast. If you love Mercborg, I think you'll like Down We Go a whole lot. But with that said, from the top half of my head and the top half of Walt's head, plus both of our shoulders, this has been Prestige Class with Walton Wood and John Bannister. Oh,
he's back just in time.
He's back just in time.
Don't
quickly,
do it.
quickly tell people where to find you on the internet.
Check me out on emailaddress.horse, a website that has no relevant content to this conversation. I'm at JD Bannister, JDBANNISTER on Twitter. I'm putting out a lot of stuff about how this is all put together. I've got a new horse to go on emailaddress.horse from Emile Bovin. I need to shout him out. I need to get Andrew the horse up on that website soon. And I need to go and attack my router because I hate it.
All right. And with that said, this has been Prestige Class with Walton and John, who, if you're watching this right now, have switched places on the screen because of the way Google Plus interfaces with our streaming software and internet capabilities. So just flip the faces or whatever. But this has been Prestige Class, and class is dismissed.